Hey everyone, welcome again to yet another episode of the Industry Show. Joining us today is MR Rangaswami, Madhavan Rangaswami. I'm sure nobody knows your name.
That's right.
Well, thanks for having us in this magnificent home. It's not beautiful, it's magnificent.
Thank you. I was going to beat you to it, man. I mean, you have the propensity to find people with great homes and find your way in there. It's
That's
a good
my
job.
real business. Yeah. This show is just a fake.
I think so.
And then we have flamingos and
Peacocks.
and just, the Golden Gate that's kind of on the side there. We didn't even want to look at it, right?
Absolutely. We'll get distracted.
Right. So, you've been distracted for the last 20 years?
20 years,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, so 20 years, but then, let's go back a little more.
Yeah.
Tell us about, your birth city and where you went to school.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Chennai, formerly known as Madras.
Yeah.
Went to school at Don Bosco
Mm-hmm.
and then to Loyola College.
Nice. They used to be in the Bonvita quiz contest.
Absolutely, and they were the best institutions at that time.
Yeah.
But I still wanted to study some more. Being Indian, you have to get multiple degrees, right? So ended up trying a stint at law. Got my bachelor's in general law, but really didn't like that either.
Because you're not good enough to become a doctor or an
Absolutely,
engineer.
no doctor, no engineer.
That was
Next,
the third,
third profession.
Right. Okay.
So didn't like that either, and then came to the U.S. to do my MBA.
Okay. But you did something with accounts also?
That was my bachelor's was in commerce, which is accounting,
okay.
and then law, and
And
then the MBA. Yeah.
Okay. But you had to keep studying, so your
Absolutely.
parents were off your back.
Yeah, at least 2-3 degrees.
So, before we kind of get serious and stuff, right? You've traveled a lot.
Yep.
You have been to places that we probably don't want to mention on the show.
Yeah.
What's your favorite city?
Favorite city is where we are today, San Francisco. It's
Really?
49 square miles
Yes.
with a bubble on top of it. We have great restaurants, great music,
Yeah.
culture, arts, sports. We have everything here,
Mhm.
and it's the city that I think is
This
my
is where
favorite.
things
This is
happen.
it, man.
Yeah.
This is it.
Even with the rains every
Absolutely.
5 days a year or whatever.
Absolutely. Luckily, the only bad thing about us is the weather. Otherwise, this city would have 10 million people in it. Right?
And no space for them.
And no space.
And then I have to
Exactly.
block driveways for people to park.
You got it. You got it.
So talking about sports, what's your favorite sport?
Well, you would think it's cricket, but it's not. My favorite sport is
At least you
Aussie.
shouldn't say it.
It's not. No, cricket is number 2 maybe, but my favorite sport is Aussie rules football.
Okay.
Just check it out on YouTube. It's in between rugby and American football.
I've seen a video of it on
It
Facebook.
is
Yeah.
amazing, and I go pretty much every year to their Super Bowl, which is called the Grand Finals in Melbourne.
Nice.
So it's my favorite sport, and I actually thought of moving to Australia because of the sport.
And it's just Australians playing with Australians?
Australians, that's it. And I can't play because you need to be a super athlete. So
I thought
play
you were
the,
going to say you have to be a citizen or
I
something.
have to play the fantasy league. That's what I play.
Have you made any money in it?
Nope, not
Oh,
yet.
Well, so it's just a sport for you.
Just a sport, absolutely.
What are the last couple of books you've read?
Well, it's interesting. These days, the media really pounds you with bad news, and you think the whole world
Fake news.
and the whole world is going, into a toilet, right? But there's a great book. I would recommend to everybody called Factfulness by Hans Rosling.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about how in the past 100 years the world is actually a better place, and he gives you detailed facts about life expectancy, about infant mortality, about income levels. Everything is on the up and up.
Yes.
So we need to really take stock. The world is a better place
It
today.
is. Yes, I agree. Any other books you want to call out?
I'm just reading *Sapiens*. I'm sure a lot of people have read it. That's also a pretty fascinating history of humanity. Really a good read.
Okay. Interesting. Well, thanks for sharing those. So, you went from, commerce to law to business, and then you had a couple of stints with oil, gas, and manufacturing. Tell us that whole journey of, spanning 20 years in like 2 minutes.
Well, I was a lost soul, so I tried my hand at different things, couldn't find my passion. And then ultimately, after my MBA, I started working in a company that was doing oil products for the oil and gas industry. Really, I think when I look back at that, what got me going was curiosity. I would walk the shop floor, talk to machine operators. Really, I was curious about how businesses were running. And that's what got me going. And then I met a consultant. And when I told him my background, he said, "What are you doing here? You should be in Silicon Valley." So this was 1982, right? There's no internet, no LinkedIn and Facebook. And so here I am trying to find where Silicon Valley is. Luckily, I went to the library, found a list of companies that were software companies in Silicon Valley, wrote them, typed letters, etc. And actually one of them was crazy enough to give me a job. Wow. And that's how I moved to Silicon Valley in the Bay Area. So I called myself an accidental technologist. So that's how I came here.
That reminds me, that curiosity angle, reminded me of Brian Grazer and how he kind of went about and, going through the books and accounts and other things. And so you kind of share a similar path with him.
I hope it's all good, but curiosity really led me to now look back and say, maybe that's what entrepreneurs have. They have this curiosity to solve a problem. They find problems and they're curious how to solve it.
Right.
And that's how they become entrepreneurs. So that's really a part of the DNA of any entrepreneur, I think, is curiosity.
True. So how did that kind of transition into, you were like, in your early 40s and you said, well, I'm going to retire?
Well, I don't know if it's truly retiring in that sense.
Yeah,
I set a goal. I set a goal that by 40 I wanted to be independent, to be able to do anything I wanted to do that was interesting, and I failed. I got it at 41, so I missed it by a year, and then I started becoming an angel investor because I said, let me try something new, So I started getting to meet entrepreneurs on a daily basis to see what they were doing, to hear their business plans, to hear their problems and challenges and so forth. That's what got me going in the tech industry.
So, you talked about being independent. Was this kind of financial independence, or was it, what were the factors that led you to make that decision?
Yeah, there were multiple. I think the financing thing, you can always make money and can continue to make money, and you can never be at the level of a Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. So that was clear to me early on. So I gave up on that. Gave up on that. And really what I wanted to do was to follow my passion. And my passion is to build networks. So that's what I started doing. Along with investing, I formed networks around the tech industry and got going in that direction. And then I found I really liked building networks. And then 10 years later, I started a network around sustainability called the Corporate Eco Forum, where we have a group of executives from the world's largest companies, come together to solve problems around sustainability and green. And then a few years ago, of course, I started Indiaspora, again, to really bring the community together, the Indian American community together. So I'm an entrepreneur in terms of starting networks.
Right. Makes sense. So, tell us a bit more about, as you started building these networks and started making these investments, you also formed Sandhill. Give us a sense of the scope of operations and what do you do at Sandhill, because I know a lot of people are always asking, what does MR really do?
Yeah. So the great thing about Sandhill is it's a virtual organization. We own sandhill.com. One of these days I might auction it for millions of dollars. So I'm still holding on to that. So we don't have expensive office space on Sandhill Road as many others do.
Well, this is it.
So
this is it.
This is my office, and everything's done virtually. And there are two of us who are partners. And we've done lots of investments. I've done about, I think, 75 investments over the past 22 years. So average about 3 a year. And it's primarily in the enterprise software space, space that I grew up in. And that's the area that I focus on. And so really work with entrepreneurs. I meet at least 2 entrepreneurs a week over 20 years, met a couple of thousand of them, and ended up investing in a few of them and got lucky.
Well, got lucky. Sure.
Absolutely.
I take your word for it. What's been your investment philosophy, right? As you're meeting, so many different thousands of entrepreneurs, but ending up making only 75 investments. So what is the filtering process, if you will?
See, the thing is, I meet so many entrepreneurs. What I really look for is how smart they are, but also if they listen. A lot of entrepreneurs don't like to listen. So being smart, listening, and then carrying out when they make a commitment. So I spend literally 2 or 3 months before I commit to a deal. So if someone's really looking to raise money this week, that's not my kind of deal. I get to know the entrepreneur, get to know how he or she operates, and then I make the investment. And really I bet on the person or persons, the founders. I really don't pay that much attention to the industry opportunity, the size of market and all that, because smart people and people
They'll
who
figure
listen
out.
and take action
Yeah.
will always navigate and find
Right.
success.
I also want to talk a bit more about your, once you decide who to invest in, I believe you have this philosophy of investing in the long term, right? You have a 10-year lifespan, if you will. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so anything in life, you see this instant success. There's nothing that I've experienced called instant success. It always takes time.
Yes.
And typically I found in the enterprise software space, for example, for a company to really take shape, really scale and be successful is a 5 to 10 to 15 year journey.
Right.
Okay. So nothing happens overnight in our business. But you read stories in the media that says someone has become a millionaire, but if you really look at the story, it's multiple years of
Yes.
work. Okay. So that's what I believe in. And so really anything I commit to, I look at it as a 10-year commitment.
Got
If
it.
not, you can't move the needle.
And that's not very common from what I know, right?
I think reality will set in for most investors. They might go in thinking they're going to get the next Facebook, but
Right.
Facebook takes 10 years, a
True.
company like that to actually be successful.
Right. So, you've kind of taken that philosophy and also implemented that in the social impact community. So talk to us maybe through the eyes of Indiaspora and how that came along, and how you used your network and this philosophy in kind of bringing these things along.
Yeah, so as any entrepreneur would do, when I first thought of giving back to the Indian American community, I talked to hundreds of people, leaders in the community, doctors, lawyers, tech folks, politicians, academics, and really tried to understand what the issues were. And what I found after my analysis was we were very siloed. We would either silo around ethnic communities, there would be a Gujarati Samaj or Tamil Sangam,
Right.
or professionally, there would be Thai for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
None of these groups talk to each other. And so when I started in Diaspora, it was to really build this network, an Uber organization that brought all professions and all communities together. And that was the basis of Indiaspora. And so when we started that, I didn't know as an entrepreneur. Again, you look back and you go, why did I do something stupid like that? So imagine this. I invite 100 people in the community who really don't know me that well to fly to JFK, to rent a car or find their way to drive up 2.5 hours to the middle of nowhere in upstate New York for a conference or an event. Would anybody show up? I didn't think of it that way. I was so excited I did it and invited 100 people. 95 of them showed up,
Wow.
which really made me feel like Indiaspora had something there. Otherwise, why would people go through this trial of getting there?
Why New York?
We just picked a location. It looked beautiful.
Yeah.
And being an entrepreneur, I got carried away with the location and said, everybody's going to show up. Now I look back and say, why did I ever think of doing something like that? So taking risk is part of being
Maybe
an
this was a
entrepreneur.
test for them. If these people show up, then
Absolutely. If they were able to find their way to this place, they're a member. Yeah.
So, talk to us more about that, the impact aspect of it, right? So, I'll let you speak. on
Yeah,
that.
so anything like that takes time. The first year in 2012, we got together and then formed the organization. And then there were 2 or 3 areas that people resonated around. One was to really bring up the social-political visibility of the community, to get more involved in politics, to get more active, because we felt the Indian American community was 3 million strong.
Right.
And the highest earning demographic, 110,000 a
Yep.
year, but our social and political clout in this country was zero, virtually zero. And so the aspiration initially was, if we're 1% of the population, can we be 1% of Congress?
At least.
At least, right?
Yeah.
And so within 2 election cycles now, we had a gala last year in DC where we celebrated we're 1% of Congress.
Yes.
And so those are the kinds of aspirations that came out of Indiaspora. Another one was, there was no stamp for Diwali, as
Right.
you know.
Yes.
And the community was trying to get this for 15 years and hadn't been successful.
Right.
So when we got involved, we kind of orchestrated a multi-year campaign, meeting with President Obama, getting his support,
Yes.
getting legislation introduced in the House and Senate. And the most difficult part, those were the easy things. The most difficult part was to get our community to write letters to the Postmaster General.
Wow.
But we did a pretty good effort. I think the community really got engaged, leaders really got engaged, and we succeeded in getting over 20,000 letters piled up on the desk of the Postmaster General. which ultimately got us the stamp,
Yes.
because 10,000 requests come every year,
Right.
and 25 get chosen. And in 2016, the community now
Ours
has a
was-
stamp. And that we can look back and say, these are the kinds of things we do. But now we're getting more involved in philanthropy, and this is a really long-term effort. We just did a study on Indian American giving.
Yes.
And the good news, bad news is, the bad news is we don't give as much as the average American. The good news, we volunteer a lot. So now our goal, our aspirational goal, is can we double Indian American giving over the next 5 years? It's a big, hairy, audacious goal, but those are the kind of challenges we want.
But I think the time is right.
Absolutely, absolutely. We just got to inspire people, show people how to give back. And it's not working hard, accumulating wealth and giving back. It's giving back every day.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, was it Kurian who said this? The pay as you go model for philanthropy, right? Instead
Absolutely.
of making it and then giving it at a certain
Yeah.
stage, can we just give as we go?
In fact, I talked to Ramesh Wadhwani, who's on
Yes.
the Forbes 400 list.
Yeah.
His biggest regret is he didn't start giving back early enough. His biggest regret. And so you don't want to get to that stage. You want to be giving all the time.
Yes, absolutely. And, congratulations again for all the success that Indiaspora has been able to gather in like 5 short years.
It's a community effort, and we're just getting started. I mean, there's so much work to be done.
True, I agree. And thanks for making me a part of that. Really
Anytime.
appreciate it.
And
Like we spoke, you've
Absolutely.
helped me. You've made a positive impact on my life. So thank you for that.
welcome.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of catching back on my notes here. So we talked about some of the forums that you've held, some conferences, these invite-only, influential, highly influential people in the industry. Any memories that you would want to share with us?
Well, I would say my most memorable event wasn't an exclusive event, it was an inclusive event.
Okay.
We were at the end of 2012 looking at how to get Indiaspora more prominence. And that's when President Obama got reelected. And we decided, we were inspired enough to do an Indiaspora ball. The first time the Indian community has ever done anything in Washington, D.C. In 60 days, we pulled this off. And it was a sold out event, 1,300 people in D.C., all beautifully dressed in Indian outfits with an Indian band, Red Bharat.
Yep.
And we had 50 senators, congressmen, governors, mayors, everybody show up. That was when Washington started noticing our community to say, hey, these guys are vibrant, they're rich, they're successful, they're influential. Let's pay attention to them. So I think that was a more inclusive event. That was what stands out for me.
It's a landmark event.
Yes.
Any other celebrities you've had other than obviously President Obama?
Well, I think the most exciting one for me was to host Miss America, Nina Davaluri.
Yeah.
She's an amazing
She's
woman,
awesome. Yeah.
and has become a good friend over the years.
Yeah.
I would say that was an exciting time to host her.
Yeah, she's awesome. Who would you like to host next?
Next, let's see. This may be off tangent, but there's a gentleman actually who lives in San Francisco. He was worth $10 billion. And he set a goal that he's going to give all his money away. And he took 8 to 10 years to do that. And he now lives in a small apartment in San Francisco. His name is Chuck Finney. He was the gentleman who started the duty-free shops.
Yep.
But he's now given away $10 billion and lives in a 2-bedroom apartment.
That is amazing.
That is fascinating. And
So have you reached out to him?
no, I want to reach out to him.
That would
Absolutely,
be
he
so
would be
awesome.
someone to meet.
Maybe at the next Indiaspora Forum.
Absolutely, we got to get him to inspire our community.
So as you've gone along this journey, inspiring people, meeting people, and hopefully getting inspired by some of them, have you used a coach or a group that has helped you through this?
That's a good question. When I got started in business, I found a mentor in my first tech company in the Bay Area, unknowingly. He was one of the vice presidents in the company. He took a liking to me. He started mentoring me, coaching me, promoting me within the company and so forth. And that's, when I look back, I owe a lot of success to that gentleman. But most of us really forget to get a mentor.
Right.
And so one of the things I hope entrepreneurs listening and hearing this show is will take back is get a mentor. It doesn't necessarily have to be from business or from family. It's someone who cares for you,
Right.
who looks out for your interest, and who gives you feedback that you may or may not want to hear.
Right.
So I would say that is really so important, and that's something I tell every entrepreneur is, do you have a mentor? That's one of the questions I ask them.
Are there any forums or places they could go to find these mentors? I mean, again, some of that is
Yeah.
industry specific,
Right.
but in general, any guidance?
I think you got to look across the people you've met.
Right.
And I think one of the things you got to do is to build a good network first. So in any job or any business you're in, try to build a network of people, and then maybe from that you might find a mentor. There's no formula to find a mentor. It's something you have to kind of get to do and find your way there.
Yeah. In terms of you've made some investments. Some have worked out great. Some maybe not as much. So, what have you noticed in the difference between the times you have succeeded and maybe not succeeded?
Well, I got to tell you this. So my partner and I first started working together 20 some years ago, and we just met each other and we looked at our first deal.
Right.
But we were so diplomatic and nice to each other. It was the worst deal we did because we both didn't say anything candidly about the opportunity. And so from then on, anytime we look at a deal, we kind of act as a check and balance.
Right.
And if we see something we don't like, we come out and say it. Even though it may not help the entrepreneur, but at least it helps us save money. But that was the worst deal we did. Was the first deal I've ever done. So it was a bad start.
Nice
just being nice and putting money in and never getting anything back.
That cost you some.
Absolutely.
So how has your Indian ethnicity and upbringing, shaped you and your decisions, for good or bad?
Well, I grew up in a very conservative Brahmin family in Chennai. And so we were raised to work hard, respect elders, and get multiple degrees, and be a doctor or an engineer, and that's how I was raised.
Maybe a lawyer.
Yeah, maybe a lawyer, but that's the background I grew up in. So it was very conservative, and for me, the challenge was to get out of that box. And I think coming to the United States probably helped me kind of do that by being able to step outside, by doing things that I couldn't do before. And really challenging myself to keep the values that were good, but then to step out and take risks.
Not get restricted by them, but
Correct.
Respect them for what they are.
Our community, we are known to be good doctors and engineers and administrators, but not entrepreneurs.
Right. So, do you think it's more a right brain, left brain kind of?
I don't know that, as opposed to just the heritage and what everybody in your family has done and what they tell you to do right from when you're born.
Kind of the security aspect first.
Exactly.
Okay. So what are you most excited about in life right now?
Right now, what is exciting me in terms of, I think, for me, I think my journey has just begun.
Okay.
Sandhill is 20 years old. My corporate eco forum is 11 or 12 years old now, and Indiaspora is 6 years old.
Yes.
There's a long road ahead. I'm excited about all the opportunities. I've never been busier in my life than I am today.
Nice. And you're relaunching one of your forums again in 2019, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a forum that first got me into philanthropy. It was 20 years ago. I decided to do a conference for the top 100 leaders in tech called Entreprise, and put a model together, got an advisory board ready to launch, when all my advisors say, we're not going to come to your conference. Threw me back. And I said, why? They said, there are hundreds of these events. How do you make yourself unique? That's when I really racked my brain and came up with a completely new business model, which was everybody who attended the conference, including keynote speakers and others, would pay $5,000 to attend. And all the surplus would go to charity. So I turned the conference model upside down, and it was the biggest success I've had. We gave away over 10 years over $1 million to different causes, got a lot of these nonprofits, mentors and board members, and it was amazing when I look back. That was my first foray into philanthropy.
That's amazing.
And we're starting that again next year, called Enterprise 2019.
I'm really looking forward to that. So you have 100 people coming up, 5,000 per head, so that's $500,000.
Yeah.
And so do you have a theme for this year?
Yeah, one of the the big themes is mentoring. So we'll have mentoring sessions for all the young entrepreneurs done by the people who've been successful in our industry. The billionaires and the successful CEOs are going to mentor these 100 younger CEOs. So it's a very different format this year.
And is it an invite-only thing?
It's an invite-only thing, and we're already getting pretty full, and it's coming up in March. Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, that is very exciting.
Well, on that note, MR, thank you so much for having us here. This was amazing, and wish you continued success and a lot of energy.
Thank you, and may you find more beautiful homes as you move along.
I have a formula for that. Well, thank you so much, MR.
Thanks, Nitin.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone.